Good morning. I get Yontov. It's gewaldige Tu B'Shvat. Baruch Hashem, last night's event, last night's Tish was absolutely noira. It was gewaldig in Yeshiva. Baruch Hashem to all of you guys. Thank you for joining us over here. And really and truly, we should have had this shir last night. But like they say, it's never too late. It's never too late. And therefore, it's never too late to learn the halachas. And Mitzvah Shem, I think some guys are going to be also eating many types of fruits today. And the truth is, it's the Nekeh every single day of the whole year. This is the Nekeh the whole time, and unfortunately people don't know these halachas, and don't appreciate these halachas, and we have to speak about them. So the first thing we have to know is that the Torah comes along, it's a pasuk in the Torah of a person eating various bugs. So we're going to get to some of the different questions, and maybe we'll even look at some actual demonstrations. And it's a very, very chomer issa, as we will see. In fact, the Gemara tells us in Makkos that a person can be over on somewhere between 4 and 6 lavim just by eating one bug. One bug. Now times that by the amount of bugs that may be in the fruit or vegetable that he didn't check, and you can imagine how many yisurim that we're dealing with over here. So we're dealing with something that's very, very serious. People also, by the way, want to know what's the big deal if it's not got a good hechsha. The guy had a yarmulke, like, you know, it's fine, like I saw in the kitchen, he had a yarmulke. There was a guy with a beard eating in the restaurant, he must be okay, right? That's how it goes, right? You know what I'm talking about. You know exactly, payers, yeah, okay, it's all different shayla. But like upon him, what do you do then? So the problem is that, of course, there's many different shaylas with different echsheirim. There's all the different shaylas of trumas and maisus, and there's afashas chala, and there's bishul akum, and all different shaylas. But one of the very chomo shaylas, which people don't realize, we're dealing with the shayla of a da'oraisa times many, is the shayla of shrotzim. And if a person is eating fruits and vegetables, which is like, hey, you go to a place and you get a salad, you get a fruit salad, you get a vegetable salad, or you get even fish and meat that could be cooked together with vegetables and all sorts of things, they have bugs in there. And if they have bugs in there, if it wasn't checked properly, there could be all sorts of problems of a person that's eating all of these things. Let's listen to this Mordechai Pri Chodosh. The Pri Chodosh explains, why is the Torah so strict with the issa of eating bugs? And he says, because there's a timtum alev. People don't chap. There's a timtum alev that happens. That means that there's layers and layers and layers that are over on your heart. That get stuffed up. You know, in Yiddishkeit, people are like, oh, Rebbe, I don't understand. I don't enjoy davening. Or learning doesn't talk to me. I don't get a geschmack from that. Well, you wonder why. Often the reason is, it's Tosfos Mefurish and Bab and Tzia, but often the reason is because a person is clogged up. So with so much timtum alev from eating bugs and eating other things that are not kosher and various other halachas of kashrus that we're not going into now, that is a timtum alev. That means on his heart is covered with layers and layers and layers of spiritual waste, and therefore he can't penetrate within deep into the neshama, and that's why he doesn't enjoy davening, he doesn't enjoy learning, he doesn't enjoy so much things. And you say to a guy sometimes, you know, he comes in and he says, Rebbe, I'm not interested in learning today, I don't know, I have no interest. Which restaurant did you go to last night? Now we understand. Why? There was like Hebrew letters, I don't know, it was like a certificate. It looked a little bit old, but there was like one of these certificates there. It looked okay, saying that the guy was Jewish. Well, it's in Israel. Come on, man. That's, you know, you can't eat whatever you want. You've got to be very, very careful. That's this Pri Chodosh. Okay? He says a very, very person has to be extremely careful. I think I mentioned this yesterday to my sheh. Shusha Pigus, I think, says this mashal as well. He says if you go to a building site, and the building site is one small piece of paper that says, you know, enter with caution. So it's a little paper that says that, big deal, you know what I'm saying? It's probably not so dangerous. If you have a building site that within 100 meters before you get to anywhere of the building site itself, there's these huge signs, don't enter, dangerous, chemicals, helmets, whatever, and when you get 50 meters in, it becomes even more like warning and warning, and it gets crazy, so then you know that you're dealing with a very serious thing. If the Torah gave us so many prohibitions, so many labim that a person can be over on, obviously we're dealing with something very, very serious. We're dealing with something very, very careful. The person has to be careful. There's a Mordechai Pele Yoetz. Listen to this Pele Yoetz. He brings down that in our Sfarim, that people have, he says that many Sfarim talk about how people are not careful. He said, Klal Yisrael will never touch nevelis and treifus, and they will exchange their life not to eat a piece of chazar, chas v'shalom. He said a Yid, Zuk the Pele Yoetz, will undergo bitter torture and even death to make sure that he doesn't eat anything that's treif, anything that's chaza, even though it tastes very nice. But he says when it comes to the issa of shrotzim, what we're dealing with today, people are so careless, they don't chap, they don't realize what's the big deal, I haven't got patience to check, well, it's probably okay, and there can be over on so many more isurim than just by eating chaz. There's a Murdig Ben Ish Chai. The Ben Ish Chai in Parshas Tzav says how careful women have to be when they're checking the lettuce. For example, he's talking about before Pesach, for the morrow, whatever it is, the responsibility that lies in whoever's in charge of the kitchen to make sure that nothing gets eaten in the right way. And he brings down, the Ben Ish Chai brings down. You saw this Ben Ish Chai ever, Ben? It's a Murdig Ben Ish Chai. Shmuel, you saw this, a Murdig Ben Ish Chai. He says that there was a Chacham that entered a courtyard on Erev Pesach, and he saw the lady of the house that was standing in front of 2 huge baskets of lettuce. And she was like, sort of like washing it, and like wasn't even like random, wasn't even looking too well, wasn't examining them or anything like that. And he said, the Chacham said to the woman, how many hairs do you have on your head? And she said, I don't know, I haven't counted them. Who can count the hairs on your head? It's impossible. Don't do that. So he said, the hairs on your head can be counted, but the number of malchus that you deserve for not checking these letters cannot be counted. That's what the Ben Ish Chai said, B'Shem Chacham Echad, what happened over there. And he said, and she says to him, what do you want from me? I've got a huge household, loads of kids, loads of morrow to do. I haven't got time. And he said, they will not save you on the day of judgment. That's what the Ben Ish Chai said. Rabbi, you've got to be very, very careful. Let's discuss some of the inyanim that I want to get into. Let's see if we can try and make this a little bit practical. The pasuk in the Torah that describes it, can you kind of see this? Kind of, yeah. Right, before pasuk in the Torah, Yiku Yud Aleph Mem Aleph, and again also in pasuk Mem Gimel as well. Right, and again you see the lashon of Titames Nafshei Seichem. There's a certain nefesh that's being metame in that case. Right, a person has to be careful. This is fine. Okay, yeah, it's good. Okay, let's see what we can try and do over here as well. Tana Devei Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Sai. Look at this Gemara in Bava Metzia. Omer HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Imolei Halisa Es Yisrael Mitzrayim, Elu B'Shvil Davar Zeh, She'em Tamim Shiratzim Dayin. In other words, if the whole reason says the Chazal that the Rebbeinu Shalom would have taken us out of Mitzrayim just that we don't eat shiratzim, that would be the entire purpose, then it would have been enough. In other words, that would have been a good enough reason to take Klal Yisrael out of Mitzrayim, just not to metamin themselves with shiratzim. Okay, there's a few things over here that some I want to get to, some I don't want to get to. Right, again, you can see the same idea. When it comes to eating chaza, a person's over on 1 issa. When a person's eating bugs, he's over on 4, 5, or sometimes even 6 isurim, as we're going to get to. Now, there's all types of bugs that are nageya. If you really want to look at them, it does disgust you, which is what it's meant to do, and it can show you there's all aphids and there's thrips and there's leaf wormers. If you want to have a look later, I can show you more. Be'in, these wonderful, wonderful things that grace our vegetables and often our fruit as well, and it's important to realize as well. Now there are 3 categories that I want to mention to you which are important. Number 1 is the sheretz hamayim. Sheretz hamayim means this is a sheretz that basically lives around the water area, right? It's 4 lavim per item. So you eat one of those over on 4 lavim in the Torah. One example, by the way, would be a lobster. The other will be a starfish. That could be negayah to that category. The next one is sheretz ha'oretz. That's 5 lavim, right? For example, snakes and worms. That could be, worms could be quite negayah on lettuce and things. And the one that's probably more negayah to us is sheretz ha'oif, basically flying insects. That's flies and everything like that. And that is 6 lavim in that case. By the way, important halacha to remember, it's betzim of Gemara in Chol and Kuf Beis, that there's no nafkamina if the animal is alive or dead. People think, oh, if it's dead, so then you're not over. No, even if it is alive, even if it's dead, if it's a whole animal, which obviously right now we're not going to go into the sugars of if it's a burial or not, so then that will be the halacha in that case. It doesn't make a major difference in that case. Now the obvious shaila is what happens if I don't see it, which is what we're going to see in a moment. Is not always true. What if I don't recognize it? I don't see it. I don't. It's not seen to the naked eye. So the general halacha is, and this is brought down in the Rashba and Shuvas, that anything, and the Aruch HaShulchan brings it in Yodei Simon Pei Gimel, that means Torah was not given to the Malach HaSharis. It wasn't given to Malachim. We're human beings, and therefore, if we cannot see something, therefore we are not chayav for it. We're not going to be liable to be punished for that because we don't see it, and therefore it's okay. So if theoretically something would be totally unseen by the naked eye, there is no Issa. However, the problem is most of our eyes are untrained, which means if they're untrained, that means really we see like a speck of dust or dirt, but we don't know what that is. If we would be trained to know, or if we would take a magnifying glass to actually enlarge it, we would see that it's a bug, which means that there's no real heter in many cases of saying, well, I didn't see it, what do you want from me? Because at the end of the day, it is seeable, it is noticeable, you just don't see the legs or the wings, and by enlarging it, you do see them. So that means that it is seeable. So it's not always going to be a heter in that case. Let's have a look if we can. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to go through the three examples, the three categories, and then we'll see some videos of real live demonstrations and examples of things that fall under these categories. So the first thing we have to know is like this. The first one on the list is something called the muchzuk b'tolayim. Muchzuk b'tolayim means that there's a chiyuv mid'oraisa, just like there's a chiyuv d'oraisa to eat matzah on the first night of the Pesach and to shake lulav on the first day of Sukkot. There's a chiyuv d'oraisa to check any fruit or vegetable that fits into the category of a muchzuk b'tolayim. What is the definition of the muchzuk b'tolayim? So according to most Rishonim, the Rashba and the head of them, that if it's more than 50%, that if more than 50% of this item has bugs, so then the halacha is that it's called a muchzuk b'tolayim, and if it's a muchzuk b'tolayim, you have a chiyuv d'oraisa to check it in that case, and if you didn't check it, you absolutely cannot eat it in that case. So, I'm going to give you some examples. Now, I'm being a big disclaimer when I say these examples, and the disclaimer is it depends on places in the world. It depends where you are, it depends on situations. I'm not giving a klal gadol, but I'm giving you examples in most places, in America and Eretz Yisrael, that could be negeya. One example could be green asparagus, artichoke, broccoli, cauliflower, corn on the cobs, some of the herbs like mint, carob, raisins, raspberries, strawberries, and figs. Most of those, in most places, fit into the muchzuk b'tolayim category, which means they're more than 50% chance you're going to find a bug. By the way, by a fig, it's not the pshat, it's a 50% chance. There's like no chance that you won't find the bug. You just have to know how to look at it, because the bugs camouflage themselves within the flesh of the inside of the fig. So it's almost like, it's not pshat like how do you eat a fig, it's how much flesh can you get out without finding a wing or a leg of an animal inside there, because it's just completely muchzuk b'tolayim. So that is a muchzuk b'tolayim, that's the first category. The second category is a miyut hamotzoi. Miyut hamotzoi means that sometimes you find, that's a chiyuv midrabanon to check. There's a machlokes, some hold it's less than 50% but close to it, and a lot of poskim hold if it's 10% chance you're going to find a bug, that is a miyut hamotzoi, and there are poskim that hold even. Rav Elyashiv, for example, held this way as well. Rav Nissim Karelitz Zatzal also held this way, that it's between 4 and 5% chance of finding a bug, that is already miyut hamotzoi. Miyut hamotzoi will be a chiyuv midrabanon, and I'll give you some examples, but again, this is not a klal gadol and it depends. Almonds, dried apricots, blueberries, cashew nuts, cherries, chestnuts, dates, grapes, guava, loquat, olives, pineapple, pomegranate, sunflower seeds, peanuts, and pistachios. These are all that have, in other words, when you see one, it's not going to be like, oh my gosh, wow, there's a bug over here. It doesn't work that way. You'll be like, okay, there's a bug. It's like, it's common. It's not vadai, but it's quite common in that case. And the last category on the bottom over here is a miyut she'einu motzoi. Miyut she'einu motzoi means it's very rare to find a bug. It's like, oh wow, you found a bug in there, right? An example would be an apple. You find a bug in an apple, it's like, oh my gosh, there's a bug in my apple. You're not going to say that when you open up a strawberry. You're not going to say that when you open up a cashew nut, right? When you open up an apple and you find it, that's a miyut she'einu motzoi. Avocado, bananas, Brazil nuts, coconut, craisins, esrog, mango, melons, passion fruits, pear, prunes, starfruit, watermelon, all of these things are lemaisa a miyut she'einu motzoi in that case. I will tell you, there's a famous Chochmas Adam. The Chochmas Adam writes that even in a situation where you don't have to check, he said, I have myself, he's talking about himself, he did check, and when he did check, he found many times bugs, and he was very happy that he was saved, because there's a shayla, there's timtum alev on something that be'etzem is mutter, halachically to eat, because I don't have to check, is there a timtum alev in that case? That's why the Chacham Sodom says it's always kedai to check, especially if it's old, it's been hanging around, you don't know where it's been, you've got cobwebs around it. There's all sorts of simonim that will tell you whether or not it could be sorts of bugs. When it comes to checking bugs, when the chiyuv is da'oraisa, only an adult that's a yid that can check it. But again, when you're going to a restaurant and there's no yid there, who's checking it for bugs? If it's a muksat b'tolayim, it's got to be a yid who's an adult to be able to check it. A non-Jew generally is never relied, and that's obviously he's got a yid that's Omid al Gabov, right? That's a very important thing. Another thing, for example, is if you slice through a fruit and you found that there's an insect there and you cut the insect in half, right? So I cut it out. They always say, what's the worst thing about finding finding a worm in your apple is finding half in the one that you bit, because then you know the other half has already been digested. But if you cut through an apple and you cut through a worm, the knife does not become treif. You should wash it in warm water, not hot water. And the halacha is that if it disgusts, you are allowed to throw the rest of the apple or whatever it may be, fruit or vegetable, away, and it's not considered to be baltashkes when you get rid of everything. Now, it's impossible for us to go through some of the methods of checking, but what I wanted to just show you, just for a couple more minutes, I just want to show you some examples of certain things. Okay, these are just examples of muksat b'tolayim that I mentioned. You know, the artichoke, the asparagus, and the miyat hamotzis, cherries and cashews and pineapple, and then miyat she'ein hamotzis, bananas, avocados, and prunes and pears and apples, whatever it may be. Now, let's have a look for a moment. Things that are normally free of bugs and require no checking, as I mentioned, apples and passion fruits and mangoes and coconuts and avocados, whatever it may be. Now, just to have a look for a moment, many of you are familiar when it comes to lettuce, that you could see, and that's why they have in America, they have light boxes that you put the lettuce in front of it, and you could see very clearly. Now, if you don't look clearly, they look like specks of dust, they look like specks of dirt, they don't do anything. However, they could be dead, but they're still asa, and therefore, in the lettuce, that would be problematic. Let me give you an example. Not this one. I wanted to show you actually. One of the ones that I'll show you is a very common one is really strawberries. This corn on the cob is a big problem. Onions, by the way, people don't chab. Onions is a big problem. It's always good to cut off the top and the bottom of the onion. And if it's a firm onion, then you peel the most outer layer and everything's good. But if it's loose, it could be problematic because things could get in, especially if it's a twin onion inside. If it's a twin on the inside, it's very likely that there's holes and cracks and crevices that the bugs could go through. But it's a firm onion. You take the top and the bottom. I'm just telling you that onions because it's very negaya. And it's always good, by the way, to wash off the knife after cutting the top and the bottom, because it could have got bugs in there, and you continue cutting and you're getting the bugs back in your onions. So you wash off the knife after you take the top and the bottom off. But anyway, that's just onions because it's negaya. We'll take questions in a minute, but I just want to show you. I don't know if you could see this, but if you can, it's kedai to look at this. Okay, this is the strawberry. People are often like, "Ooh, strawberries! It's not the big deal." I never found a bug in a strawberry. Okay, you heard those guys? This is a regular strawberry. Just check out this video. No, not this one. Let's go back. This is gavaldik mamish. What they say. Okay, look carefully. You're going to see the arrow coming up. There it is. Watch. I don't know if you can see it. If you can't, we'll play it later. You can see it there. And it's got very, very small, in the cracks and the crevices, it's over there. Right? And it's very, very common. The only real way that's been tried and tested to check a strawberry is obviously to soak it in some soapy water for a few minutes, and that loosens them, the grip, and then to put it under a running faucet of water with a soft sponge and rub each one down under running water. That's the only way that's been tried and tested where you can have strawberries. Now I know that the badats over here, and I've had many tiners on them, how can they sell strawberries if they hold la halacha l'maisa, you're not allowed to eat strawberries? And I've attacked them many times and say, how can you do this? No, we put it in the newspapers. I'm like, well, what if you don't read a newspaper? No, they hold you're not allowed to eat a strawberry in a regular way. You have to smash it up, you have to zhuzh it, you have to, blend it up, right? That's what many people do hold. But I'll upon him, if you do this, it's tried and tested and it works, and that is the way to do it. Again, soapy water loosens everything over there, but it's important to make sure that strawberries and everything are cleaned. There's many things. These are in, actually this is a picture from raspberries actually. You can see these worms inside there. People are eating these things, you're munching on these things. It adds to the crunch, it's very delicious. But it's again 4, 5 or 6 slavim that you're getting per one. So if you imagine you have, just imagine 4 or 5 bugs on one strawberry, times that by, 6 lavim, and then times that by how many strawberries you're eating. I don't know, I've lost that count on the maths, but Shem Yerachem, what we're dealing with over here. But there's lots of different shilas when it comes to pineapple. Also in the crevices, sometimes there are sorts of things in there as well. Cashew nuts, very common in cashew nuts in Eretz Yisrael to find all sorts of bugs over there as well. Dried apricots, you've got to open these things up and check these things. Many times found bugs. It's very, very usual. It's not an unusual thing to find find bugs. And dates, very negaya. Yes, it's Peres Eretz Yisrael, and yes, it's Shiva Saminim, but people are eating them today. But when you open them, you can clearly see bugs over there, and you've got to be very, very careful to make sure that everything is checked. When it comes to figs, like you can almost not see the bugs. Like look at this picture over here. There's bugs there, but you can't see it because they camouflage themselves within the flesh of the actual fruit. Watch why it's almost impossible to eat a fresh one without smearing it everywhere and doing every way, baby. Okay, Rabbi said there's lots of different shaylas lamaisa, but just to remember, there's a timtum halei that a person gets when he doesn't check everything. It's kedai to make sure when you eat something to make sure that it is bug-free, to make sure that our leiv remains fresh and ready to makabel the Torah, and everyone should have a wonderful day in a Gavaldik Tu B'Shvat.